Have you noticed every time you're overthinking, it's always the same thoughts about the same topic that brings up the same feelings, and it feels like you have no choice but to watch it happen. And it's frustrating because it's your mind that feels like it's out of your control, which doesn't make sense. And I would feel this, I remember the night before fights at the beginning part of my career. I'll be sleeping, trying to rest for the very thing I'm overthinking about. And all I could think is all these what if scenarios. What if I get knocked out? What if I get choked out? What if I get submitted? What if I get hurt? And I'm trying to tell my mind that I'm trying to sleep so I could have the energy to prevent all of these what ifs from happening. And although it drove me insane, it taught me something very valuable. And in this video, I'm going to break everything that I've learned to be able to gain control over my mind and be able to relax before big events like the night before a fight, and break it down into 4 easy steps so you could do the same. So be sure to stick out to the end because the last part is the most important part so you can gain that control back of your own mind. So the first step is to notice what's the command you've been giving your mind for your mind to come back with all these thoughts as a response. Because the mind is very literal. The mind is programmed to help us survive. So it's not paying attention to what we mean and how we feel. It's just responding. So you want to see your mind as like that friend that is so literal it can't take a sarcastic joke because it won't get it. It'll ruin the joke and take everything you're saying at face value. Your mind is the same way. It's not negative, it's not working against you. It's just in a beautiful way, it believes in you so much it doesn't question what you have to say. It just responds to it. And once you get to see what the command is, the thoughts make so much more sense. So when you think about everything that you've been thinking about when you're in your head and you're overthinking and your mind feels out of control, there's always a theme. What's that theme? Because when I reflected on my theme the night before a fight, it was always the ways that I don't want to lose the fight. And I realized that's the command. When I'm seeing all these thoughts of me getting knocked out, me getting submitted, all these things that will cost me the fight, my response to these thoughts was always, I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose the fight. And that's what my mind was replying to. And since my mind is trying to help me survive, it's coming back with all these thoughts of, okay, here are all the possible ways that you could lose the fight. Here you go so you can prevent it from happening. Now it's realizing, okay, I didn't know the instructions I gave my mind to follow. Now I know. So now that you have the first step, now that you have the command, the next step, which is really important, is how does it feel? Because when you're having these thoughts, there's this feeling that won't go away. For me, when I was having all these thoughts of me losing the fight, there was this very specific kind of fear. And it wasn't like watching a horror movie kind of fear. And it wasn't even seeing a spider kind of fear. And I'm fucking terrified of spiders. I don't like spiders at all. It's very, especially like the hairy ones, I could kill them, but just seeing them, I can't. So, but it didn't feel like that. And in noticing how this overthinking, this command felt specifically, I noticed the value of it because it's a notification. It's letting me know when I set off this command, when my mind is going in this direction and looking for all the ways that I could lose the fight, which is valuable information because now that feeling allows me to open the window of possibility and give me more time to change the command, which is now step 3. Because now that you have the command and you have the feeling, step 3 is what's the new command? And the new command, as you're writing it out, you want to pay attention to how it feels. Because at first I tried the opposite. So I don't want to lose. So I figured, okay, if I don't want to lose, I want to win. But I noticed the feeling didn't change, which lets me know I'm still setting off the old command. I'm saying I want to win in response to I don't want to lose. I'm saying I want to win because I don't want to lose. Okay, that feeling let me know that. So if I'm saying I don't want to lose and my mind is looking for all the ways that I can lose to help me, then what would I like my mind to look for? And that right there gave me the new command, which is how can I win? And I noticed when I ask that question, when I have that new command of how can I win, it's a very different feeling. There's this feeling of clarity. It feels clear. It feels like relief, honestly, because there was so much tension within the fear of I don't want to lose. And that's the value of having the feelings with every command, because now you know when you're doing which. Now I know when my mind is following the command of I don't want to lose, and when my mind is following the command of how can I win. Now we go into step 4, which is the most important step, which is when you feel that you set off the old command, that feeling comes up, slow down. Because before I would want to get away from that feeling. I didn't want to feel that fear. I didn't want to think about all the ways that I can lose when I've dedicated so much time towards a fight and I've cut the weight and I've even trained through injuries. I don't want to feel that. But in trying to get away from the feeling, I'm not changing the command because I'm closing that window of opportunity as fast as I can. Now, in understanding why the feeling is there and using the feeling, I slowed down when I felt the fear and I used that to ask myself, how can I win? And immediately I felt my body relax and the thoughts started to change. And it becomes like this muscle. It gets so much easier to do. At first, it takes a second to feel the feeling that you just wanted to get away from and ask yourself the new command. And the more you do that, especially because it feels so much better, it gets so much easier to do. To where I would be walking into my jiu-jitsu academy, I would have a teammate ask me, hey, how are you feeling about your fight? Are you prepared? Is your guy good? I would get the feeling of fear. And because I know what that means, I would just think to myself, how can I win? And that would actually be a response that I would give my teammate. And in doing that more and more, that gave me that sense of control to where now the night before the fight, I'm able to sleep peacefully because I was able to relax in knowing that my mind is actually not out of my control. And everything that I'm thinking about is not something I have to fight against. I get to save so much more energy because I know how to speak to myself. I know how to speak with my mind. And it's so interesting because it's something I realized within myself and I help my clients realize where things that we want to change, they make sense to do. But the paradox, what's interesting is it makes sense, but then it stops making sense when you see why it makes sense. Right? And it sounds tricky, but if you notice, that's what we did in this video. If you realized it made sense to have those negative thoughts, but when you see why it made sense for those thoughts to be there, now it doesn't make sense to give your mind that same old command. And that's how you start to break habits and patterns. And it's so interesting because I get people to break the belief that they're broken, like see through the belief that there's something wrong with them, where there's not at all. There's nothing wrong with any of us. It's just, it makes sense to think and feel a certain way. And it's not until you slow down to see why it makes sense that it stops making sense. And that's my favorite thing to do with my clients, even with myself. It's just so beautiful to do. And if that's something you would like to experience, there's a booking link in the description below. And we could do a one-on-one call and you get to see how it works. It's fun. It's awesome. And we get to customize it for you too. So that's the best part for it is, there's a very unique story that we tell ourselves, and it takes us leading ourselves through that story to find out that it's not true. And that's something I can help you do. So in the comments below, let me know, how did it feel to give yourself that new command? What was that like for you to now take control back of your mind? What was that process like? Because that's the best feeling part, to realize you never lost control. You just found a way to realize how to use it on purpose. And it's such a good feeling. Everybody deserves to feel that. So be sure to like, share, subscribe. I'm wishing you an amazing day. If it's nighttime by you, I'm wishing you an amazing night. And I will catch you later.